When the From the Vault Collector's Box came out in 2008, I was just a little kid moving his first steps in the world of Magic the Gathering. I perfectly remember wanting that box so badly that at some point my aunt just had to buy that for me. And as I riffled through the cards, I marveled at the amazing artworks of the 15 dragons inside. One in particular, that of Nicol Bolas of course, caught my attention and sparked my imagination and undying love for this game ever since. Today, after so many years, I feel honored to revisit those childhood memories and bring you the incredible story of Nicol Bolas, perhaps one of the most iconic characters in the whole multiverse. Just before we dive into the rise and fall of this legendary dragon god, do not forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and consider supporting us through Patreon for more MTG content. Thank you very much, and it truly is a pleasure to be back. So the first question we gotta ask is, who is Nicol Bolas? Well, Nicol Bolas is one of the oldest and most powerful beings in the entire multiverse. As an elder dragon, Bolas possesses immense magical power, ancient knowledge beyond imagination, and an insatiable desire for domination. He is known for his ruthless intelligence, calculating mind, and mastery over a wide array of spells. Originally from the plane of Dominaria, Nicol Bolas appears as a towering, dragon-like figure with intricate, dark scales, enormous wings, and a pair of long, curved horns. Bolas' endless ambition and ruthless actions have shaped many events across the multiverse throughout the years, making him a central figure in MTG's lore, and certainly one that we cannot ignore. Like the other Elder Dragons, Nicol Bolas was born from an eggstone shed from the Ur-Dragon's wings, falling from the sky like a meteor. Born simply as Nicol, he hatched together with his twin brother Ugin. Now, this is interesting because unlike all other Elder Dragons who were born individually, Nicol and Ugin named themselves together and touched the ground of Dominaria in the same instant. Due to his smaller size and shared name, Nicol was initially seen as the weakest and less powerful among his siblings. He was mockingly called the Last Fallen, and his early days were marked by survival and learning. When a newly hatched sister Maravia Sol was killed by a tribe of human dragon hunters and their dogs, Nicol was outraged, but Ugin convinced him not to intervene, teaching him the importance of knowledge and forgiveness. Inspired by the sun, however, which he saw as bright and fearless, Nicol disregards his brother's advice and kills one of the hunters. Now this is very important because this is the moment where Bolas realizes that the world he lives in is a world of hunters and hunted. In order to feel equal to his larger siblings, he adopts the second name Bolas, and tirelessly trains to perfect his hunting techniques alongside his twin. During this period, Nicol and Ugin take up residence with Arcade Sabbath, who was a dragon lord living inside a human settlement nearby. And this is a place where Nicol Bolas learns for the first time about the weak nature of humans and how easily they can be manipulated to his advantage. Eventually, Nicol decides to seek revenge for his sister's murder in a very subtle way. He tricks dragon hunters into a quarrel between each other and takes over as their supreme leader. This manipulation also leads Ugin to realize that Bolas had never truly cared for him, which causes Ugin's Planeswalker spark to ignite and the dragon to be flinged into the vastness of the multiverse. Thousands of years before the Brothers' War, which happened in 64 AR, or even the fall of the Throne Empire in the year -4795 AR, the Elder Dragons on the world of Dominaria were engaged in a conflict that lasted for millennia, which came to be known in the mytho-history of the plane as the Great Elder Dragon War. The war began when 7 descendants of Evectis Asmadi, who was Nicol's cousin, raided Bolas' lands in their lust for power. After defeating them, Bolas faced Evectis and his siblings Rubra, Ravus, and Lividus. Now, despite initial setbacks and heavy losses, Bolas used his cunning to turn the tide of the battle and manipulated dragon clans against each other, creating chaos and weakening his rivals. Slowly, dragons turned their attentions to human settlements, some hunting them, others trying to manage them like cattle. Arcade Sabbath and other dragons were drawn into the war as well, swayed by Bolas's manipulations. The war went on for generations, with dragons crossing seas and recruiting humanoid war bands under dragon standards, while in the meantime, sorcerers and mages from all over the world sought to serve dragons in return for power, fueling the conflict even more. The final battle took place in Yamura, which was a major supercontinent of Dominaria between the forces of Bolas and those of Arcade Sabbath, who in the meantime had rebelled against his brother's madness. Unexpectedly, Ugin himself intervened in the last phases of the battle, preventing Bolas from achieving total victory. In a fit of rage and jealousy over Ugin's Planeswalker's spark and the ability to travel across worlds, Bolas' own spark ignited, causing him to planeswalk away to the Meditation Realm and effectively putting an end to the war. We do not know exactly what happened right after Bolas' spark ignited. What we know, however, is that many adventures and conflicts later, Nicol Bolas confronted his brother Ugin on the same meditation plane. Their battle went on for days, years, and even generations as the two brothers traversed various planes in their struggle. Ultimately, they returned to the Meditation Realm where Bolas was finally able to strike a killing blow onto his twin Ugin. Ugin's death caused monstrous waves of energy that washed across the planes and blind eternities of the multiverse, and which flinged Bolas through multiple planes before he finally landed back on Dominaria, on the island chain of Madara. For an unknown amount of time, Bolas ravaged the many planes of the multiverse, raiding and killing anyone who dared to stand in his path. Over the centuries, the Elder Dragon's wickedness and voracious lust for power did not go unnoticed, particularly by the Ravnican Planeswalker Azor. Working together with Ugin, who in the meantime had been reborn as the Spirit Dragon, the Sphinx Planeswalker devised a plan to permanently imprison Bolas using an artifact known as the Immortal Sun. The original plan was to use the Immortal Sun's power to trap Nicol Bolas on the plane of Ixalan forever. But Nicol Bolas, always one step ahead of his enemies, discovered their intentions through hints left unknowingly by Azor on various planes. To thwart their plan, Bolas traveled to Tarkir and found a submissive pawn in Yasova Dragonclaw, who was the Khan of the Timur clan. Yasova sought to end the reign of Tarkir's oppressive dragons, aligning her goals with Bolas' ambition. Nicol manipulated Yasova by promising her the vision of a peaceful Tarkir littered with the bones of dragons. In this vision, a great dragon with golden scales, or Bolas himself, promised Yasova that if she led him to Ugin's lair, he would slay the spirit dragon, ending the dragon's reign on Tarkir. After a fierce battle, Bolas finally defeated Ugin once again by turning the spirit dragon's own spawn against him. In the original timeline, Ugin died from the injuries inflicted by Bolas. However, the Planeswalker Sarkhan Vol will later travel back in time and save Ugin by encasing him in a Hadron cocoon and preserving him in a state of suspended animation. As a result, without Bolas knowing anything about it, the timeline was altered, and Ugin lived. At some point in time, Bolas became metaphysically tied to a temporal rift in Madara that he had visited thousands of years earlier. This connection meant that he couldn't physically manifest on the plane of Dominaria without anchoring himself to the local mana lines to avoid overwhelming the plane. He found the perfect spot on Madara where blue, black, and red mana lines intersected. The dragon killed the reigning Empress of Madara and established his imperial shrine at its center, and from there he ruled as the self-proclaimed God Emperor of Madara for over 400 years. During his reign, Bolas unknowingly created his own nemesis in Tetsuo Umezawa, who was the Elder Dragon's imperial champion. After enduring several trials, Tetsuo renounced his title and vowed to kill Bolas, slaying the dragon's regent. Enraged, Bolas abandoned his physical body to pursue Tetsuo's spirit into the meditation plane, failing to realize that he was actually walking into a trap. While Nicol was busy in the meditation plane, Tetsuo used the Meteor Hammer spell to shatter Bolas' Imperial Shrine, severing the dragon's anchor to Dominaria and also disintegrating his body in the process. So, left without this physical form, Bolas' spirit was trapped into the meditation plane, unable to escape to Dominaria or any other plane. Deprived of his connection to Dominarian mana, the dragon's magical abilities were greatly diminished. Bolas' immense might and physical strength were useless in the meditation plane, which was governed by thought and spirit, and where Tetsuo was eventually able to gain the upper hand. Stripped of all his advantages and in a spectacular turn of events, Bolas was ultimately defeated and killed by Umezawa. However, due to his connection to the Temporal Rift in Madara, a ghostly remnant of his life force lingered by the coast, trapped between the material and the meditation worlds. Centuries passed, and the Temporal Rifts kept expanding, gradually enabling Bolas to reappear as an immaterial shade by channeling the mana lines in Madara. In this form, he adopted the alias of Sensei Ryu, and when he sensed that the human planeswalker Teferi was lost in a rift, separated from his companions, Bolas arranged for them to arrive on the Madaran beach near the Talon Gates. By exploiting Venzer's latent planeswalker spark, Bolas was finally able to escape his prison, and regained his physical body by pulling a copy of it through the rift from an earlier point in time. After Teferi reunited with his companions, he challenged Bolas to a duel. Bolas easily won, first absorbing and then planeswalking away from Teferi's attacks. He then tortured Teferi with his mind-shattering touch and tore his body apart. While taunting Teferi's allies, the dying planeswalker from Zhalfir shared his knowledge of the collapsing planes with Bolas, making him aware of the severity of the rift problem across the multiverse. Time rifts were disruptions in the fabric of space-time caused by powerful magic or catastrophic events. Each of them destabilized the planes in which they were found, threatening to unravel the very structure of the multiverse and potentially leading to its complete collapse. In light of this situation, Bolas decided to spare Teferi, allowing him to heal himself so that he could deal with the rift situation on his own. Soon after, the Elder Dragon left and vowed vengeance on anyone connected to the Umezawa bloodline. At a later point in time, Bolas returned to Madara, where he was ambushed by the planeswalker Leshrac. After yet another epic battle, Bolas defeated Leshrac and imprisoned him in the porcelain mask of the Myojin of Night's Reach, the Kamigawa Kami of black magic. Later, Bolas confessed to Teferi and his companions that he had studied the rift phenomenon thoroughly and took responsibility for closing the Madaran Rift using Leshrac's life force. As the rift situation worsened, Bolas grew skeptical that Teferi and his group could actually prevent the multiverse's imminent collapse. So, he devised a plan to preserve himself if the worst had happened, then planeswalked away to an unknown destination. Though in the end the multiverse survived through the Great Mending, Jeska's spell changed the nature of the planeswalker's spark forever. Like all other old pre-mending planeswalkers who survived past the Great Mending, Bolas lost a significant portion of his powers but retained the formidable abilities of an Elder Dragon as well as his unmatched intellect. After departing Dominaria and before the Mending, Nicol Bolas turned his sight to the plane of Amonkhet. The dragon was attracted by the unique properties of Lazotep, a strange and unique metal that reacted to necromantic magic. Upon his arrival, Bolas sought to impose his rule on the plane, but encountered fierce resistance from the 8 gods of Amonkhet. Despite his diminished power, the Elder Dragon proved to be a formidable adversary. He decimated the population and forced the gods to retreat to the city of Naktamun, where the final battle for the control of Amonkhet took place. There, in a Seat the Scaleless sort of vibe if you know what I mean, the god Bantu betrayed his brothers and sisters and secretly allied to Bolas. When Bolas breached the city's protective barrier, he unleashed a devastating spell that killed every adult being on the plane, while also severely weakening the gods in the process. 3 of the 8 gods were twisted into serving Bolas willingly, while the rest were controlled through mind manipulation spells maintained by Bontu the Betrayer. Bolas then used the mummified dead to raise the surviving children, building a cult around his persona through the construction of imposing monuments and legendary prophecies heralding the sun god's glorious return. These prophecies foresaw that, upon his return, the almighty sun god would shatter the Hekma, or the magical barrier protecting Amonkhet's populace from the horrors of the Broken Lands, and call forth those who had passed the trials of the 5 gods to join him in a true afterlife. The remaining inhabitants, including the gods, would have to prove their worth to him, just as the mortals had to prove themselves in the trials. The doctrine of this new religion was even chronicled in a new collection of prophecies named the Accounting of Hours. On top of that, Bolas corrupted even the Angels of Amonkhet to serve as his agents, effectively closing his grip on the plane and its population. Additionally, Bolas spread the false belief that he was indeed the god creator of Amonkhet, a claim that was also later reiterated by the Planeswalker Liliana Vess. The faithful people of Amonkhet eagerly waited for their god's return, symbolized by the prophecy of the second sun aligning with Bolas's horns, which became a significant part of their cultural life and expectations. Now, since we mentioned Liliana Vess, let's talk about her relationship with the Elder Dragon for a second. In the years following the Great Mending, a weakened Nicol Bolas encountered Liliana Vess, who was envious of his apparent resilience to the Mending's effect. In truth, the dragon had lost much of his powers, as we've already said, but compared to others, it was still one of the strongest and most cunning planeswalkers in the multiverse. Exploiting her ambitions and lust for power, Bolas then brokered a deal for Liliana with 4 other demons, restoring her youth and some of her pre-mending powers in exchange for her soul. Initially, the price Bolas demanded for his services was unclear. However, it was later revealed that even if Liliana had killed all the 4 demons, her contract would default back to its original broker, Bolas himself, effectively binding her to the dragon instead of being broken. Okay, so for now let's just stop here. We're gonna know more about their story in later chapters. As I said before, the Great Mending of Jeska took a heavy toll on every planeswalker that was around at that time. And for Bolas, this meant losing much of his 25,000 years worth of arcane knowledge. Nevertheless, after leaving Amonkhet, the dragon managed to reach the plane of Alara, where once again he began his machinations from the Shard of Grixis, claiming the necropolis of Cataract as his own domain. Bolas's plan was to take advantage of the impending conflicts to regain his ancient power back. He wanted to manipulate various individuals and organizations across the 5 shards of Alara to create an environment ripe for war and generalized chaos. The conflux was a cataclysmic event on Alara where the 5 separated shards of the plane, namely Bunt, Esper, Grixis, Jund, and Naya, began to merge back together into a single world. This reunion would cause a massive surge of mana, leading up to the creation of the Maelstrom, or a very powerful nexus of energy. Nicol Bolas wanted to exploit precisely that, the conflicts and the Maelstrom, to absorb this immense power, and hoped to regain his ancient abilities and restore his former dominance across the multiverse. Bolas's scheming finally came to fruition when the conflicts began. Through his manipulations, full-scale war erupted across the plane, awakening the mana obelisks on each shard and amplifying the Maelstrom's power even more. Among others, Bolas also enlisted Sarkhan Vol to help spread destruction across Naya. The planeswalker Ajani Golmaid, however, who was on a quest to avenge his brother's death, eventually confronted Bolas on Alara. Realizing he had no chance of defeating the dragon god himself, Ajani summoned the essence of Bolas's soul to fight for him. This Urzat's dragon battled Bolas in perfect symmetry, and both vanished in a flash of light after a climatic clash. Though the extent of Bolas' injuries was unknown, his loss to Ajani was a significant blow and forced the Elder Dragon to account for the Leonin in his future schemes. During the time he plotted to absorb the Maelstrom energy on Alara, Bolas also recruited other followers. Tezzeret, for one, after a near-death experience on Esper, awakened to his latent spark and found himself on Grixis. He encountered Bolas, who offered him power in exchange for servitude. Following his desperate lust for power and retaliation against the world, the Artificer Planeswalker accepted, and became one of Bolas' most precious pawns. In the meantime, disguised as a human, Bolas recruited the young Planeswalker Ral Zarek for several clandestine jobs on Ravnica. Roughly in that same period, the Elder Dragon also founded an interplanar trading consortium that will be later usurped by Tezzeret in a bloody coup. That is before the Elder Dragon saved the Artificer's crippled body once again after a fight against Jace Beleren and re-enlisted him as an agent of sacrifice, but we'll talk more about that later. So after the failure on Alara, Nicol Bolas demonstrated a keen interest in the unfolding war on the plane of Mirrodin. He recognized the potential threat posed by the rise of new Phyrexians, and so he dispatched his minion Tezzeret to infiltrate and assess their progress. Bolas' primary objective was to delay the emergence of a central leader within the Phyrexian hierarchy, a task that Tezzeret found ultimately impossible to achieve. And although they're not really a topic for this video, since we've mentioned them, let's spend just a few words on new Phyrexians. The New Phyrexians are a faction born from the merging of Mirrodin's original inhabitants with the influence of the Phyrexian oil, leading to an honorific and relentless pursuit of perfection through mechanical and biological amalgamation. They sought to spread their great work across the multiverse, assimilating all life into their twisted vision of unity and perfection. Bolas' grand schemes finally came to a head on the plane of Amonkhet, where his plan culminated with the conversion of hundreds of the worthy dead into his eternal army. When he decided to materialize in front of his faithful follower above his throne in Naktaman, he surveyed the city in ruins, its gods defeated and its population under assault by his minions. Satisfied, he turned his attention to Bontu, the betrayer. He then commanded Bontu to kill Hazaret, the last god making a stand against Bolas. After Bontu succeeded, Bolas rewarded her with the most precious gift one could receive on Amonkhet: death. He had his army of undead tear her apart, and then she was reborn as a god eternal. With his plans on Amonkhet progressing swiftly, Bolas focused on the Gatewatch, a group of planeswalkers captained by Gideon Jura and known for their role in stopping the ascent of the Eldrazi Titans on Zendikar. Assessing their potential usefulness, Bolas observed as they formulated their strategy to confront him. Each member of the Gatewatch attacked him with their respective powers, but Bolas easily countered their efforts. He kept Gideon at bay with his tail, ignored Chandra's flames, resisted Nissa's vines, and dismissed Liliana's zombies with ease. And if you're thinking, wait, hadn't Liliana signed up a sort of a soul-binding contract with Bolas? The answer is yes, but the Necromancer thought she could somehow outwit the dragon by leveraging the Chain Veil's power against him. However, Bolas anticipated her action and exploited her desperation, offering her a chance to survive the confrontation if she retreated to another plane. Despite her attempts to rally her teammates, she ultimately took his offer and left the others to face Bolas alone. At this point, the Elder Dragon confronted Jace and allowed the telepath a brief glimpse into his mind before mentally crushing him. Without either of them knowing it, this actually triggered a failsafe previously placed by Ugin, temporarily erasing Jace's memory and forcing him to planeswalk to Ixalan, thus safeguarding Ugin's secret and Jace's life in the process. Bolas then dealt with Chandra by capturing her and breaking several of her ribs, forcing her to planeswalk away if she wanted to save her life. He used necrotic magic against Nissa, turning her link to the corrupted land against her and compelling her to escape. Finally, Bolas confronted Gideon, piercing his invulnerability with magic and offering him a choice between death and betrayal. Gideon chose to flee, leaving Bolas utterly victorious over the Gatewatch. Soon after the Gatewatch's defeat, Tezzeret arrived to receive orders from his master, who sent him to Ravnica to check on Ral Zarek's progress on a secret mission. In the meantime, he remained in Amonkhet to celebrate his success and plan his next moves. Nicol Bolas' quest to reclaim his lost power led him to seek the immortal sun that was lost on the plane of Ixalan. He sent his loyal servant Tezzeret to Kaladesh to acquire a portal to travel across worlds, known as the Planar Bridge. Once the device was secured, the dragon then dispatched Rashka to the plane of Ixalan to locate and retrieve the immortal sun. The Immortal Sun was an ancient artifact created by the Planeswalker Azor I to prevent any Planeswalker from leaving a plane of existence. This powerful relic had the capacity to trap any Planeswalker on the plane it was located, making it a crucial component in Bolas' future plans. Rashka, driven by the promise of power, successfully located the legendary artifact and summoned Tezzeret, who wielded the power of the Planar Bridge to leave the plane of Ixalan and hand the Immortal Sun to his master. With the Immortal Sun secured, Bolas' attention shifted towards the plane of Ravnica, where the final phase of his plotting was about to unfold. Exchanging information about what had happened on Ixalan, Jace and Rashka were able to understand that Bolas' plan was to use the Planar Bridge to invade Ravnica with his army of Eternals coming from Amonkhet, and then use the Immortal Sun to trap any Planeswalker on the plane to prevent them from escaping. To facilitate his invasion, Bolas had spent years turning several Planeswalkers across the multiverse to his cause, granting them control over key Ravnican guilds. Rashka, for one, under Bolas' influence and with her memories erased, became the leader of the Golgari Swarm. Dovin Baan was placed in charge of the Azorius Senate, and Ral Zarek, influenced by Bolas, took the de facto control of the Izzet League. Bolas also manipulated Kaya into assassinating the Ghost Council, positioning her as the head of the Orzhov Syndicate. And finally, Domri Raid seized control of the Gruul clans and aligned them with Bolas' vision. Bolas' plan also involved using Ral Zarek to turn Project Lightning Bug into a beacon that would attract other Planeswalkers to Ravnica. Meanwhile, Tezzeret prepared the Planar Bridge for the impending conflict, ensuring that Bolas' interplanar army could be transported to Ravnica at will. Project Lightning Bug was a clandestine initiative conducted by the Izzet League and designed to detect and track the presence of Planeswalkers as they arrived on Ravnica. Using advanced magical and technological apparatus, Project Lightning Bug aimed to monitor the distinct energy signatures associated with Planeswalkers' arrivals, providing the Izzet League with crucial information about interplanar activity. So, by ensuring that Ravnica became a hub teeming with Planeswalker activity, Bolas set the stage for the dramatic events that would unfold during his invasion, leveraging the Izzet's technological advancements for his own dark purposes. When Bolas finally arrived on Ravnica, he was met by Niv Mizzet, the Firemind, and former leader of the Izzet League. Confrontation between the two dragons resulted in an epic battle that wreaked havoc across the city. They exchanged devastating magical, physical, and aerial attacks, with both dragons drawing blood. Bolas, known for his mind-shattering abilities, was even surprised to find that Niv Mizzet's mental barriers resisted his assault. As the battle raged on, the Firemind realized he could not ultimately defeat Bolas. In a desperate move, Niv collapsed a massive section of the city onto Bolas at a Simic Zonet. However, soon after, Bolas emerged unscathed, surrounded by a dark aura of death and destruction. This ultimate display of power instilled fear in Niv Mizzet for the first time in his life, leading him to a desperate final leap towards Bolas. In the end, Niv Mizzet was defeated, with his skull and charred bones serving as a grim testament to Bolas' overwhelming power and a devastating loss for the plane of Ravnica. Mizzet's death marked a turning point in the battle, as Bolas's display of unmatched power struck fear into the hearts of all who witnessed it. And yet, despite all the odds, the Planeswalkers rallied together for one final effort to bring down the Elder Dragon. The War of the Spark had just begun. The War of the Spark was the climactic confrontation between Nicol Bolas and a coalition of Planeswalkers on the plane of Ravnica. Bolas' centuries-long, intricate schemes culminated in this epic battle, where he aimed to achieve godhood and ultimate power by harvesting the sparks of any Planeswalker present on the plane. As I've mentioned before, Nicol Bolas lured dozens of Planeswalkers to the plane of Ravnica using the Interplanar Beacon. Once they arrived, Bolas wielded the Immortal Sun's powerful magic to trap them on the plane, preventing any of them from planeswalking away. With Ravnica under his grasp, Bolas cast the Elder Spell, a potent spell designed to kill and harvest the sparks of any planeswalker present, granting him unparalleled power and godhood. For the war, Bolas appointed Liliana Vess as the general of his Dread Horde, an army of undead Eternals that he had been building on Amonkhet. As she was leading the Dread Horde, however, Liliana witnessed a tragic scene. A young girl shielding her younger brother from a collapsing wall, only for both of them to be crushed a few seconds later. This moment, likely reminding her of her failure to save her own brother Josu, caused Liliana to turn the Dread Horde against Bolas. She immediately stopped their attacks on Gideon Jura, though not before one Eternal harvested the spark of Dak Fiden. Seeing Liliana's betrayal, Bolas invoked the magic of her contract, causing her to begin disintegrating. Despite the immense pain that this caused her, Liliana screamed in defiance and kept pushing the soldiers towards the dragon. Gideon, who was fighting nearby, in a truly selfless act, sacrificed himself to shield and save Liliana from the contract's magic, taking the fatal consequences upon himself. Seizing this unique opportunity, Liliana commanded the God Eternals Oketra and Bantu to attack Bolas at once. In a surprising turn of events, Niv Mizzet, who had been resurrected and infused with new power, exploited this distraction and impaled Bolas with Hazaret's spear. This spear, that had been given by Bolas himself to Hazaret and that contained a fragment of the dragon's essence, was able to pierce through his scales and damage him even in his godlike state. And although Bolas managed to obliterate Oketra on the spot, Bantu was able to bite him and absorb all the sparks he had harvested, including Bolas' own spark. Overwhelmed by the immense power he had just absorbed, Bantu raptured into shards of energy, signaling the end of Bolas' reign. This defeat marked a significant turning point in the story of the multiverse, as the Ravnican coalition had successfully thwarted Bolas' plans for ultimate domination. The battle showcased the resilience and bravery of the Planeswalkers involved, who united to bring down one of the most powerful and cunning adversaries that the multiverse had ever known. With Bolas weakened and disparked, the gathered Planeswalkers prepared to finish him off. However, just before the final blow was landed, Ugin reached out telepathically to Jace, explaining the need to keep Bolas alive rather than killing him. Ugin revealed that both he and Bolas had previously cheated death, Bolas at the hands of Tetsuo Umezawa and Ugin by becoming a spirit dragon. Therefore, to ensure Bolas could never threaten the multiverse again, Ugin devised the plan to imprison his brother for good while making the multiverse believe he had perished. At Ugin's request, Jace conjured an illusion of Bolas disintegrating into ashes, deceiving the other planeswalkers just long enough for Ugin to planeswalk there undetected and then escape through the blind eternities with Bolas' unconscious body wrapped in his wings, heading towards the meditation realm. Bolas, gravely wounded from the loss of his spark, took weeks to regain consciousness and months to even start recovering. Ugin then told him that the realm had been his own long before Bolas even became a planeswalker, and that he had also played a crucial part in Niv-Mizzet's rebirth. Ugin also revealed that the gem sitting between Bolas' horns contained a fragment of Ugin's soul, allowing him to witness every step and mistake his brother had made along the way. Ugin then stripped Bolas of both of his names, ensuring that he could never be summoned by anyone ever again. He then declared himself Bolas' jailer for the remainder of Nicol's mortal life and expanded his presence throughout the meditation realm, transforming it in a worldwide prison for the both of them. His essence bound to the entire realm, Ugin vowed to watch over his brother until Bolas' natural death, thousands of years into the future, ensuring that he would never plague the multiverse again. Nicol Bolas' story is one of ambition, power, and ultimate downfall. From his early days as a conqueror and manipulator to his final defeat and imprisonment, Bolas' impact on the multiverse has been immense and very far-reaching. His intricate schemes and ruthless tactics brought countless worlds to their knees, but in the end, it was his own hubris that led him to his undoing. Now, trapped in the meditation realm and stripped of his names, Bolas serves as a reminder of the perils of unchecked ambition. As we reflect on his legacy, we see a tale of power pursued at any cost, and the inevitable consequences that followed it. And that was everything I had for you today, folks. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the rise and the fall of Nicol Bolas. I truly hope you liked this video, and let me know if you think we'll see more of this ruthless character in future sets, and also how. Before you go, just remember that if you like this video, do not forget to give it a thumbs up to help us with the algorithm, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and do not want to miss out on more MTG's lore. Finally, if you'd really like to support my content and what I do, consider joining the Patreon or the YouTube channel as a member. Your support truly means the world to me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.